Hey guys, this is Pablo with Meditation Amsterdam, and in today's video I want to answer a question that arose with my last video, in which I was making a case for the fact of pure being as the place where we want to reside with our awareness, and how that fact of pure being, once we become close enough acquainted with it, makes us into a creator. Now, when we say you become a creator, it can have a bit of a new age ring to it. It may seem as if I'm suggesting that you can manifest things out of thin air, and that you can become one of those sort of like manifestation type people, or the book The Secret, if you only will it, it'll manifest itself, or whatever. What I meant to say, and the answer to a question that came in the comments of a creator of what, is what I meant to say is that you become generative as opposed to self-seeking. You're no longer seeking validation in external experience. And you are no longer using external experience in the form of people and circumstances to elicit within you things like love, peace, and harmony. So you cut out the middleman. You became that which generates those things, as opposed to that which is seeking those things and seeking to obtain them from people and circumstances around you. And what I thought I'd do is to make a video about why it is that becoming acquainted with the bare fact of pure being, or the fact that there is, whatever it may be, creates this situation for you. So in order to explain that, we need to go back to some of the critique that I've made on identifying with the egoic identity, and therefore with the content of your thinking mind. If you think that this is an interesting topic in general, I have a playlist on the channel called The Thinking Mind, where I essentially critique the thinking mind as a great tool, but not a great identity to hold. And within these issues that I tried to highlight about the thinking mind, is the fact that the thinking mind can always argue both sides of any case. So if you bring any topic up, the thinking mind will be able to say, well, it's white, but on the other hand, sometimes it's black. Or, there will always be caveats, limitations, exceptions, points at which whatever you're stating starts to not be true, etc., etc. These are part and parcel of the dualistic subject-object memory-based operations of the thinking mind. You cannot solve that. So that every single fact that is spewed out by the thinking mind, no matter how certain it seems, meets points of contradiction at some point or another. This makes it so that using the thinking mind as that which clarifies what is true is very problematic. You'll always find yourself going into rabbit holes trying to figure out if what you're saying is really, really true, and therefore overthinking is a pattern that develops from this. Now, the beauty of the fact of pure beingness, or the fact that being is, let's put it like that, is that it's undeniable. Even to make the statement, I am not, or there is nothing, or there is not, you need to first be there to make that statement. So raw, pure, undeniable being, it's an inalienable fact of reality. It cannot be denied. And as such, it is the one incontrovertible fact that you can feed your mind so that it finds bedrock, and from there can operate without concerning itself so much as to whether this experience is real or not real. It it has finally found this bedrock reality that is incredibly reassuring and incredibly grounding. It's existentially grounding. Now, that's all good and great, and you can say, well, yeah, I get it. I get that, pure beingness is undeniable, and therefore, it's a certain fact. Great. But as I was mentioning in my last video, it's a certain fact that doesn't hold a lot of water. It seems very boring, very lame, undeniable, but so what is the question. Well, the so what comes in when you start to spend more time getting acquainted with that undeniable fact. In other words, the more you place yourself in the knowingness of that undeniable fact, and you confirm it over and over again for yourself, there is undeniably there is, undeniably I am. It's undeniable. I have to first be in order to even make that statement or contemplate it, and so on. The more time you spend doing that over and over and over again, the more the mind starts to realize, wait a second, of all the experiences that I register, I have been attaching my identity to experiences that are questionable and destructible. I have been parking my identity in the body, which will die. I have been parking my sense of identity in my self-image, which is almost just a thought in the mind, really. I've been parking my identity in memory-based events and people. I've been parking my identity in all manner of experiences, all of which are destructible or at least very, very questionable. And every time I've done that, not only do I feel small, but I also feel incredibly vulnerable, because I know that all of those things where I'm parking my identity are either only partially true or will come to an end at some point or another. So parking my identity in all those things is an extremely unsafe thing to do. And you can feel it when you start to explore what your sense of self is made of. It's made of pure fear, actually. The sense of self is an entire fear-based operation of the mind that springs from the fact that you know your identity can be destroyed. But the more you start to spend time with the undeniable fact of being, pure being, the more your mind starts to go, the more I spend time with this fact, the more reassured and grounded and safe I feel. And almost naturally, the mind starts to gravitate towards that fact, and it starts to go, well, if I park my identity there, if I have to park my identity anywhere, which apparently the mind is obsessed with doing, that seems to be probably the best place to do so. Because every other place, every other experience or sense in which I park my identity just comes and goes all the time. So I feel threatened all the time. But if I park my identity in the bare fact, which is undeniable, of being, I feel very, very safe. So the mind starts to gravitate, and it starts to first observe pure being as some sort of thing. And then it goes, well, this is the warm end of the pool. I think I'm going to identify with this, because, everything else just is too damn scary. And then it starts to identify with pure being. And that's when you start to realize your real self. And all the hang-ups of the ego, all the things that you had been grappling with, struggling with, being in a push and pull relationship with, suddenly start to loosen up. Not because you have acquired any sort of special faith or courage or understanding, but because you have now such a solid base from which to operate, which is inalienable. Nobody can take it away from you, and nobody can deny it. That everything else which revolves around it seems to be far less important than it used to. And what it feels like is as if you are at the poker table with an enormous, almost like an unending supply of chips. So that it doesn't matter which hand people are holding around the table. It doesn't matter if you lose a hand. It doesn't matter if you win a hand. Your supply of chips is just enormous. You've essentially become the house. You're the house now, right? So what do you care what hands are being drawn around the table? It's completely beside the point. That's what it means to be a creator. You have become the very source of the validation that you had been trying to seek and obtain from the outside when you could not feel the bare fact of your being, and therefore felt constantly under threat of being annihilated, essentially. Right? So when you park your identity in something that can be threatened or will come to an end, you'll be afraid, naturally afraid. Whereas if you park it in something inalienable and indestructible, such as the fact of being, what's going to happen? Nothing's going to happen. Now, it doesn't happen from one day to the next. The fact of pure being needs to become clarified and stabilized in the mind. It needs to be clear, it needs to be deep, and it needs to be ongoing for that shift of identity to actually take place. Okay? It's not just something that you can think around, and it's not something that will happen with a couple of Satori or Kensho peak experiences where you're one with everything, you know, oh my God, I've solved the problem, and then 5 minutes later you're craving for that state of mind and you can't have it anymore. It's not about that. It's not about an experience of pure being. It's about identifying with pure being from the very core of what you feel yourself to be. It's a very different thing, right? And that's what it means to be a creator. The more you start to do this, the more you start to realize that you always were that, of course, but it didn't matter so long as your identity was parked somewhere else. And plenty of psychosomatic work and trauma work and clearing out your neurology, your neurophysiology, and so on needs to be done, because trauma, emotions, and overthinking cloud the fact that your true identity is pure being. It is obscured by too many movements in the mind. It's almost impossible to see through into pure being when the mind is fluctuating all over the place. Once you start coming in touch with it, things become a lot easier. And as a matter of fact, I was having a session earlier today with someone, and I was saying how the mind will never believe that entertaining such a bare bones, boring, seemingly completely irrelevant, lame fact as I guess I can't deny that I am, will somehow lead to a life of complete bliss and fulfillment. The thinking mind doesn't know how that could possibly happen. How if it just stops thinking, gives up, and becomes acquainted with pure beingness, suddenly bliss, love, and harmony will arise. And it doesn't know that because the thinking mind's function is just to think. It's to take memory, recombine it, parcel it, classify it. It's like a little computer, right? So the analogy that I used earlier with this person was the typewriter can never be moved by the content of the novel. It's impossible. And just like that, the thinking mind needs to only understand enough about this so that it will have a plausible, understandable reason so that the mind can park its attention away from the activity of thought and into the seemingly lame and unimportant fact of undeniable beingness. The undeniable fact of I am, or not even I, because that's pure being is not personal, but just the fact that there is whatever it is that there is. So it seems very lame at first, very neutral, very unimportant, and yet the fact that it can't be denied provides that bedrock for the mind. And by and by, the mind begins to recognize, wait a second, this is really comfortable, actually. There's nothing I can say about it. It doesn't do anything. And yet, because it can't be denied, it provides me with, it's almost like a warm blanket or something. And it just provides me with that sense of certainty that I've been craving so much. I've been trying to get it and seek it and get that validation of my being. And I can't seem to get it from experience, because experience just dances on top of being and it changes all the time. Whereas the fact of being is like this sustain, it's like this ground that holds you. But you need to become acquainted with it, despite the fact that it seems so uninteresting and so on. So I guess that's it, right? It's when this is realized, then the fact of pure being is almost like the fountainhead. It's, as I said in the analogy of the poker table, you become the house, and you become this generative. It's almost like you become a sun onto yourself, like you know, the sun and the moon, not father and son, but the astral sun, because you radiate as opposed to trying to seek the validation from experience, in full knowledge that it has always failed and will always continue to fail. So yeah, that was the topic of today's video. It is in the theme that I've been following as of late, which is this theme of pure beingness. And it's a relatively fresh realization for me. I know that I've spoken about it before, I've read about it before, but it's becoming so tangible now that it's almost like the only really relevant thing to communicate. And interestingly enough, the next video that I will make on the Pearl Beyond Price, the book series that I'm making, speaks very closely to this as well. So it seems to coalesce quite nicely with this theme about pure being that I'm expanding on as of late. So I'm very curious to hear your thoughts about this one. And as usual, if you think that the content of this channel can benefit other people, then your liking, sharing, and subscribing makes it far more visible and available out there. It's also very motivating to me. And I'll be back with more videos pretty soon after this one. Cheerio. Thanks for listening, and bye-bye.